All right, so are you ready to take a deep dive into the world of Mastercard?
Absolutely. Let's see if it makes sense as an investment.
We're going to look at their financials, their market position, and their global impact even.
They've transformed from a simple credit card network into a global financial powerhouse,
Yeah, and they're betting big on a future with no cash.
a cashless future, and they're going way beyond just processing payments.
I've noticed they've been on an acquisition spree.
Yeah, definitely aggressive. 31 companies they've snapped up since 2004.
Wow. So are they spreading themselves too thin, or is that smart diversification?
Well, let's see what their financials tell us.
Okay, so paint a picture of their recent performance for us.
Their last earnings report showed a 14% jump in revenue, and they consistently beat those analyst expectations.
So even with inflation, people are still swiping their cards.
It seems so, especially online. Their Q4 online shopping data was really strong.
So they're making money, but where do they stand compared to the competition?
They're still second to Visa in market share.
So still playing catch up?
Yeah, but they've been outperforming Visa in growth consistently.
How are they doing that?
One way is by focusing on emerging markets, they're tapping into areas where digital payments are just starting to take off.
That's smart, going where the growth is. But what about innovation? Are they keeping up with digital wallets and all the fintech startups?
They're all in on AI, and not just for things like fraud detection.
Oh, so where else are they using it?
They're using it to give customers a more personalized experience. They're streamlining business operations and even helping small businesses access credit.
AI is a hot topic, but it comes with ethical concerns. How does Mastercard approaching that?
They're being proactive about AI governance. They've teamed up with organizations like the U.S. AI Safety Institute.
Okay, and what's the goal of those partnerships?
They're developing a system to identify and reduce potential risks so their AI is used ethically.
That's good to hear. But with all this growth and potential, is Mastercard stock a good buy right now?
Well, it's interesting because Morningstar analysts put their fair value at $465.
Okay, and where's the stock currently trading?
It's around $532.
So that suggests a potential premium.
It does. Investors need to think about that.
So for our listeners who are thinking of adding Mastercard to their portfolio, what are the pros and cons they should weigh?
Well, on the plus side, MasterCard has this really strong track record of solid financial performance.
That's reassuring. What else?
They've been raising their dividends for 13 years straight.
Wow. Okay, that's impressive.
It is, and they've got these share buyback programs that show they're confident in the company's future.
Okay, so those are some strong points in the pro column, but what about the cons? What are some risks investors need to be aware of?
One potential downside is their reliance on consumer spending.
So if the economy takes a hit?
Exactly. It could impact their performance, and their expansion into services, while promising, is still new territory.
So no guarantees there.
Right. It's a bit of a wait-and-see situation.
So there's a lot to think about. They're a global giant making big moves, but no investment is risk-free. Speaking of responsible investing, how does Mastercard measure up when it comes to ESG factors?
They're actively involved in a bunch of ESG initiatives, especially around financial inclusion and sustainability.
Okay, can you give us an example?
Sure, they're working to make financial services accessible to communities that have been underserved, and they're trying to reduce their environmental impact.
So they seem to be taking ESG seriously.
Yeah, they are.
With so much happening, what stands out as Mastercard's biggest strength in your view?
I'd say their adaptability. They started as a credit card network, but they've become this technology and services powerhouse.
So they're evolving.
They're embracing new trends and reinventing themselves, which is key in an industry that changes so fast.
I like that they're not just resting on their past success. So for someone who already owns Mastercard stock, what should they be watching closely in the coming months or even years?
I'd keep an eye on how those investments in AI and the services business are doing. Are they turning into real revenue growth and gains in market share?
So those are the metrics to watch.
Exactly. They'll tell us a lot about their long-term success.
And for those who are still undecided about investing, what key considerations should they keep in mind?
It's crucial to know your investment goals and how much risk you're comfortable with. MasterCard has a solid history, but like any investment, it carries some risk.
Right.
So you want to think about the current economic climate and how comfortable you are with their valuation before jumping in.
It sounds like Mastercard is really a company that's constantly moving and always looking for the next big thing.
Yeah.
But are they losing sight of their core business with all these acquisitions?
No, not at all. Their core is still processing payments, and they're at the top of their game there. But what's interesting is they're using that expertise to create this wider ecosystem of services.
So they're not just processing payments, they're becoming like a one-stop shop for businesses.
Exactly. It's like building a financial superhighway, and they want to be in charge of every on-ramp and off-ramp.
Okay, I like that analogy, but let's zoom out for a second. Mastercard's a global company, so their decisions have a ripple effect on the whole economy.
Absolutely. Their push for a cashless society is a great example. It has big implications for financial inclusion, especially in developing countries where traditional banking isn't as strong.
Right. Giving people access to digital payments can really change things for individuals and businesses in those areas.
Exactly. But there's also the other side of the coin. A cashless society brings up questions about privacy and data security.
Yeah, like what happens if those systems fail or if governments start using them for surveillance?
It's complicated. There's no easy answer.
It's a double-edged sword for sure.
Yeah.
So for someone who's thinking about investing in Mastercard, what are some key things they should watch to see how the company's doing?
Their earnings reports are super important. Of course, you want to see revenue growing steadily and good profit margins.
Well, what about beyond the numbers?
I'd pay attention to their acquisitions. Are they going after companies that make them stronger, or are they moving into totally new markets?
Our acquisitions tell a story.
Exactly. It shows their long-term plan.
It's like we're trying to figure out their next move in a chess game. But what about people who already own Mastercard stock? What should they be watching?
I'd say focus on those investments they've made in AI and the services business. Are they getting results? Are they getting new customers and generating good revenue?
Those are the metrics that matter.
Yeah, that's what will tell us if those ventures are successful.
It's not just about ideas, it's about making them happen. And speaking of making things happen, Mastercard has a good history of rewarding shareholders with dividends and share buybacks.
They've been incredibly consistent. They've increased dividends for 13 years in a row, and their share buyback programs show they're committed to making their shareholders happy.
Those are positive signals for investors, for sure. Okay, so we've talked about their financials, market position, their innovation, and their global impact, but we haven't really touched on their competition.
Oh yeah, it's a tough playing field. You've got the big names like Visa and American Express, but then you have the tech giants like Apple and Google coming in strong, and don't forget all the fintech startups trying to grab a piece of the pie.
Sounds like Mastercard has challengers everywhere. How do they stay in front?
By constantly adapting and innovating, they're investing a lot in AI. They're exploring blockchain and even testing the waters in the metaverse.
So they're not afraid to try new things.
Not at all. They're willing to experiment and push boundaries, which is important in an industry that's always evolving.
It sounds like they want to be more than just a payments processor. They want to shape how we buy and sell and use money online and offline.
But they're aiming for a future where they're not just handling transactions, they're actively changing how commerce works.
That's a big vision.
Yeah.
But in the end, the question for our listeners is Mastercard a good fit for their portfolio?
That really depends on their personal situation, how much risk they can handle, and what their goals are as investors.
No simple answer then.
Right, there isn't. So what questions should our listeners ask themselves before they make a decision?
That's a great question.
Well, first, think about your time frame. Are you looking for quick gains, or are you in it for the long haul? Mastercard's a solid company, but the stock price can go up and down in the short term.
Good point. What else should investors keep in mind?
Take a close look at their valuation. The stock is trading at a premium right now, which might mean there's not a lot of room for growth in the near future.
So investors have to weigh those risks and potential rewards. What other factors might play into their decision?
Think about the competition. Can they beat the tech giants and the fintech startups? And how will they handle the changing rules and regulations?
So many things to consider. It sounds like investing in Mastercard isn't for the casual investor.
It takes some research and a willingness to take on some risk. But for those who are willing to do their homework, it could pay off.
It's like we're putting a puzzle together, right? We're trying to figure out if Mastercard is the right piece for someone's portfolio.
Exactly. And that's what makes investing so interesting. It's not just about numbers. It's about understanding the company's story, their vision, and if you believe in it.
So let's talk about the future. What are some things outside of Mastercard's control that could affect them?
Well, regulatory changes are a big one. Every country has different rules for payments, so any changes there could make it hard for Mastercard to operate in some markets.
So they have to be ready for anything.
Right, and we've already seen some pushback against going cashless in some parts of the world, so those trends are worth keeping an eye on.
What about cryptocurrencies? Is that a threat to Mastercard?
It's something to think about for sure.
Yeah.
Cryptocurrencies offer a different way to pay, and more people are using them, especially young people.
So Mastercard can't just ignore it.
Nope, they need to adapt, or they could get left behind.
It seems like their success really comes down to staying ahead of the curve.
Exactly. They need to know what's coming next. And
Right.
that's where their focus on innovation and those strategic acquisitions are key.
I've noticed they're partnering with some unexpected companies, even traditional banks. What's the strategy there?
It's actually really smart. They're realizing that the future of finance is more about working together than competing.
So they're teaming up instead of fighting it out.
Right. By partnering with banks, they can use those existing networks and customer bases while also bringing their own technology to the table.
It's like they're turning competitors into allies.
Hmm.
So after this deep dive into Mastercard, what's your final take? Is it a buy or a pass?
Well, I can't tell you that for sure because it really depends on each person's situation and how much risk they're comfortable with.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all answer.
Exactly. But I will say this Mastercard's a company with a great story. They're a leader in a fast-changing industry, and they're not afraid to make big moves to stay on top.
So they're definitely one to watch. What's the one piece of advice you would give to someone who's thinking about buying Mastercard stock?
Do your research. Don't just buy because of hype or what you see in the news. Really learn about the company, how they work, what they're good at, and where they could struggle.
Look beyond the stock price.
Exactly. Think about the long term, and most importantly, invest carefully, knowing that there's always some risk.
That's great advice. It's been really interesting exploring Mastercard, and we hope our listeners feel like they can make smart choices about their investments.
We hope so too.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more deep dives like this.
And let us know in the comments what other companies or topics you'd like us to cover. We're always up for a new challenge.
Thanks for joining us, and until next time, happy investing.